Do you want to know how to create MW2 cinematics like this? Yo, what's up guys, it's Sparky, coming to you with my first ever editing tutorial. Today I'll show you my 3 steps to creating MW2 cinematics like this. I'll walk you through my process, from recording to pan crop. This is going to be a long one guys, but it'll be worth it. Before we begin, if you haven't already, follow me on Twitter, subscribe and drop a comment. Let me know of any future tutorials you'd like to see. Let's get into this guys. Alright, so here we are in the game, gone on to private match. That's basically how you have to do it. I just want to run over some of the game settings that you need to change, or this just won't work. So first of all, obviously choose the map you want. I've got a cool idea for a similar scene, just like the one I've shown you guys. But you want to go to custom, you want to make the time limit the highest it can be. The match start time, you want to turn that down to 5 seconds. It's basically the animation at the start doesn't play when you turn it down. Then the important thing is you want to go over to team and you want to put the spectator to free. It won't be on free, it'll be on player view. And if you have it on player view, by default, basically means you won't be able to fly around. So you need to turn it to free and then also turn off minimap, because the minimap just clogs up the screen, and the less stuff on the screen in the scene, the better. So yeah, those are the main couple things. Obviously the final thing would be your controller settings. I use a controller when making these scenes because it's so much easier than mouse and keyboard, and also your field of view. I've chose 60 for map scenes. I use 60. For some soldier scenes I use higher FOV. Sometimes 90, sometimes 100, sometimes even 120, but it kind of helps give that cinematic view, and that's what we're obviously trying to go for. Okay, so we're now in the game, and as you can see I'm spectating here with my view. One thing you'll instantly realize is it says my name at the bottom in that yellow. I haven't figured out a way to turn that off, so basically what you want to do is just focus your cinematic in the top 3/4 of the screen, because later what we'll do in After Effects is we'll zoom it in. Another little tip for all the kind of like moving side to side, basically the way I do it is I do it going forward, and then in After Effects I just reverse with time renapping and make it look like it's going backwards, but obviously the scene is recorded forwards. A couple things to keep in mind while doing this is stuff like composition and the framing of your shot. What you always want to look for is a focal point, especially in a scene that's like a map scene that's moving around the map. You want to look for focal points. So my 2 focal points in the cinematic, if I'm starting over here, would be first this box here, and then this kind of row of vegetables here, and then I'll probably have it come back to maybe this stand here, and then go off like this. So basically the way I do it is, because you can only be so smooth with your hand movements compared to a dolly in older games like MW2, MW3 with RW4X, you basically have to move the right stick the least you could possibly do and still get away with the sin. So I'll focus my camera as much as I can on this blue box in the center of the screen, because that's where I'm coming from, and then I'll slightly move the camera left to right, because basically the whole scene is made in After Effects. The scenes always look awful before they're put into After Effects. Don't worry if there's a slight amount of jitteriness in your hand movement. We can fix that later in post. The idea here is, you see I had way too much jittering in my hand movement, so I'll record it again. But what you're basically trying to do is you're always trying to push forward with the left stick while also panning left and right with your right. So it's a bit tricky. I've been doing this for many years on games like Fortnite and other Call of Duties without theatre modes. Another tip about cinematics is you always want to overextend the cinematic longer than where you actually need it. So I'll probably actually start the scene here. Okay, what I'm going to do is basically get a take now and come back to you guys when I finally have the take, because it does take a tedious amount of time. Yo, so I've opened After Effects and I've got our cinematic here. I scrubbed through the footage, and what I found was the smoothest scene I managed to get was actually going backwards. So what I advise is to record the cinematic many times. Don't record it once. Record it as many times as you can, because sometimes what you'll find is the best take will be, later on or earlier on. It won't be your first take, it won't be the 6th take. It's sometimes really, really random. So yeah, so we've got the take here, and obviously it's much, much longer than the time slot in the song, so you play the song so you can hear it. As you can see, the annoying UI is showing. So what I tend to do just to fix that is click S and just zoom in. The main part of actually editing this scene, most of what you see in the final cinematic is all done in After Effects. It's basically three main things: obviously the sync, the scale, the rotation, and the position. Changing those basically makes the scene. Having the scene the way it was before looks ugly, and this is kind of how we make it look polished and final. So now what we're going to do in After Effects is time renap this. To time renap, I just Control-Alt-T, and basically how you do this with sync, what you'll usually do is go through and sync the points out to the beats, but the way we want this to work is we want to have 3-point sync, and we don't want the points of interest to be marked on these beats. So like that's the point of interest. I don't want it to be on the beat. How I do it is I use the beats to swap between the points of interest. How we're doing this is you want to go like midway between the 2 points, and that's where you want to line up the points of interest. Obviously that'll be way too quick, so that'll be the second point of interest. So we go there for that. Here we'll go kind of midway here and get that. Basically just before it does this, you want to focus it, so probably like there. Then on the third point, we'll get the third point of interest, which is that kind of like rack of toys. And then and then basically you go in to the points and you fill in a keyframe just kind of before each of the points of interest, so kind of like there. And then on the final beat, you want it to kind of be like there. Again, this all depends on your cinematic. I can't replicate every cinematic perfectly because it's all to do with the song and your cinematic and how many beats you're syncing between. So once you've done that, you just want to highlight all of them, click F9 to easy ease, and then go into the graph editor. It'll look like this, and as you can see, like quite a lot of it is spaced out, so between this point of interest and this point of interest. Basically you want to pull these points as far right and far left as it will go before it looks choppy. This takes a lot of fiddling with because sometimes it can look way too choppy, and you don't want it to look choppy. You want it to look smooth because it's an indie edit. For a rap edit, maybe you could have it choppy. So the idea of having this middle point is you want the cinematic to basically speed into the point of interest, slow down, and then speed out to the next point of interest in like a smooth manner. So that's what we're trying to accomplish here. So I'm just going to really quickly go through and do this. Okay, so I've gone through and just really quickly done that to all the points. What you might notice is it might look too sharp. You basically don't want this curve to be too aggressive. So what sometimes I do is kind of pull this in between keyframe while holding shift. In the case of a rap edit and you want it to be really sharp, you would push these down like this, so it's very sharp. We're not wanting it to be kind of that sharp because it's an indie edit, so we're kind of loosening it up a bit more. Now the best thing to do while you're doing all this is keep preview rendering it. I think that's good enough at the moment. Another thing that's good to add is obviously you want to enable motion blur and then also frame blending. To turn frame blending on, you have to have this on, so make sure that this is also on, but now it should be a little smoother. Okay, so the sync is at a point where it's acceptable. Now this is where the fun begins. So here is where you add the pan crop, and the pan crop will basically make or break the cinematic. So what I'm going to do is add some scale. I'm just going to click S. What I usually do, depending on where the cinematic is traveling from, is either zoom it in or pull it out. So I'll either pull it out like this or I'll zoom it in like this. For this kind of thing, as the camera is traveling backwards, I'm going to zoom it in. A quick little trick you guys can do is by zooming in and then zooming out really quickly, you can kind of fake the imitation of traveling in a cinematic that doesn't travel, kind of adding to it. Yeah, so it kind of gives that kind of look. Okay, so what I've really quickly done is just put keyframe points for the point of origins, because you're basically syncing to these keyframe points, not the actual music. Okay, so with scale, what you always want to do is change position. So I've zoomed in this scene here because distance between this point of origin and this point of origin is quite similar. They're quite close together in the actual map. So a good way to fake that is to zoom in this point of origin and then zoom out at this point of origin. And we've kind of lost the point of origin here. So what I'll do is I'll click P for position, go to the second point of origin and keyframe the position here as default. Go to the first point of origin because we zoomed it in here, and then just pull the camera over to the left because we still want to see you know, where I was aiming at for the point of origin, but zooming in has obviously changed that. And then you just want to also copy and paste this keyframe here, then ease them, go into the graph editor and pull the transition sharp like that. Now what we need to do is also copy and paste the scale to the song point, and then also make the transition out quick as well. Okay, so there's a couple more things that we have to add. The next thing will be left to right to left to right. So obviously our scene goes left to right currently. But what you want to do with the position is add more to that character. Sometimes up to down to up to down. You'll notice that I do it a lot in the scene that I showed you at the start. Basically what that does is, again, you're adding motion to a scene that doesn't necessarily have it. With dollies on, you know, MVM, you can add that kind of motion in the actual scene, so you don't have to worry about doing it in After Effects. So what we want to do is always play to opposites. So with this first scene, what I'm starting to feel is I feel like this scene should go up, and maybe look at this kind of like top canopy thing here, because this box is kind of plain. I'm still holding this box as the left focus of the shot, so the composition doesn't look weird, but I still want to show this kind of left kind of canopy thing here. Now obviously you can see that at the top it's exposing the top of it, but don't worry about it again because we'll have black bars there, so it's not so much of an issue. But yeah, so what I want to do is just make sure at the start keyframe the position is back to normal, and then come into the graph editor and just make sure that it's sharp like this. So basically what it does is it goes up as it comes out. Then obviously you want to go to the middle keyframe and copy and paste that new position point, and then go to the second point of origin. And now because I went up on the last one, I'm going to go down, not too much but down enough, and then just pull in my white box here, point of origin, and make sure that it's covering at least this bar of the screen. You can kind of pull it over a little more if you want. I feel like that looks good. So with the position, what you always want to do is on these song points is make sure that the tips are on the song points, so that it only starts to change position at this middle point. Okay, cool. And then with this position, we just want to pull it up again. So much of making these cinematics is just messing with it and tweaking with it until it looks right. Again, it all depends on the cinematic. Cool. So now that we've got the position, scale, and the sync somewhat looking good, we'll now do the rotation. Now the rotation works in a similar kind of sense. We're syncing to point of origin keyframes that I've put here in red, because what you want to do is swap the rotation kind of throughout. Unlike the scale and the position, I won't have this many keyframes. What I'll do between the 2 points is I'll leave this middle keyframe out. So I'm just going to go through and do the rotation. Again, with what way to rotate it is strictly to do with the scene and what you're trying to like convey with the scene. Again, if you have it too extreme, I've got it quite extreme at the moment, it might look weird. What you also want to do at the start and the end is also put it to 0, so it kind of comes into that. But I'm working with opposites. This is a positive rotation, then it goes to a negative rotation, then it goes to a positive, and then back out. Now obviously leaving the rotation without easing it kind of looks like this, and it looks horrible. So what we'll do, go into the rotation keyframes, ease them, and then graph edit them. Now it looks like this at the moment. What we want it to look like is more sharper. So what we'll do is using the beat keyframe, we'll drag this over to here. What you're trying to do is line this middle part of the curve up with this. So then we'll drag this over to like here, and you basically just want to make sure that the rotation crosses kind of at this middle point like that, and then again here. But it works for me like this, and then for the start and the end you want it to be a sharp kind of L looking curve like this. We'll just see what that looks like. I'm looking alright, but the rotations are a bit too harsh and they're taking away from the movement. So what I'll now do is just drag the rotation down a bit at each point, and obviously for the negatives up, so they're still rotated but not too much. All right, cool. So I think that looks good enough for the point of this tutorial. The final thing I'll do is just add motion tile to the cinematic. What motion tile basically does is, see at the end here, there's a bit of a black bar from where I've pushed the cinematic. If you turn mirror edges on, what I usually do is put the output width to 200 and the output height to 200. I'll then transition probably to another scene here, going out from the right. I need this to pull away quicker. So what I'm going to do here is zoom it out more and get more of this kind of like mirrored look. Might need to put the mirror effect up a bit. And the same with the position, is just pull it up more like this. Yeah. Okay, cool. So that is the cinematic process that I go through. Obviously then final things I would do is add some blurs. Let's turn this off. Add a effects layer above, add some, you know, glows, some shake, cinematic shake. Cool. And then obviously in the final render where it has black bars, it has the CC, it will look a lot better. But yeah, it will obviously look a lot better. So I'll just show you the final result that we've got here. Alright guys, so that's basically how I made the map cinematics in the new MW2 2022. Yo guys, so this has been Sparky. Make sure to drop a like. If you guys want to see a soldier cinematic tutorial for this game, drop 100 likes and I'll make it. Well then guys, it's been Sparky. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.